Yeah. Um, we same thing as Delvin, man, trying to find activities for the grandkids and keep them out of the sun too long. And you know, uh, my 2-year-old grandboy, y'all can come get him anytime y'all want.
Okay.
I'm coming. My grandson is 19.
Okay, all right.
And so I don't have any little ones unless I go and adopt other people's So I got him. I was with a dozen kids last night.
Okay, wonderful. Ms. Brandley, you have a check-in for us.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm doing well. My family's doing well. Just continue to pray for the world and just make sure that we stay focused.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Brandley. We'll be communicating with you a lot more in that we know that you have some knowledge banks that we have not been able to explore or partake of. I'm just saying this based upon our last conversation. So you stay tuned, and I'm going to skip my check-in in the hopes that we can give an extended day or an extended time to Miss P.K. McCary. Let me start this introduction, and we'll probably do something in a more sophisticated way going forward. But I remember back in the early 90s when the attempted genocide was happening in Bosnia and Serbia behind the Caucasus Mountains. After the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of people before Bill Clinton imposed that no-fly zone, Bill Clinton, President of the United States, went on to say, after the genocide took place in Rwanda, that was the greatest mistake of his presidency, that he did not mobilize to intervene or prevent the genocide that took place in Rwanda between the Hutsis and the Tutsis. And so I know that all of us who were aware of it, our hearts have been very, very grieved. It's almost like a dystopian event in terms of that genocide. I'm just reminded as I give this introduction that World War I really started from that region that Miss PK just visited. And when she went to Bosnia and Serbia, when she had a Serbian experience, and 65 to 75 million people, if you take the civilians and the military casualties, ended up dead from that war that started in that region. So I'm not going to do justice with this, but I know for the last 30, 35 years, Ms. PK has been a central influence on the peacemaking, certainly in this region. And now it appears that she is engaged in such a way that she's changing the mindset and the climate, the culture of peacemaking on a global scale, with her profound storytelling skills and also her ability to be a transformation agent with young people and young adults. And so I think the world community has been very fortunate to have Miss PK around the world. She has been the wind behind a lot of the sails of a lot of the community-based movements that you see here in Houston, Texas, in terms of bringing her profound talents to polish those movements and make sure that they look good, including many of the things that I have been associated with. So Ms. PK, you might want to expand, give a little background on how you got to Serbia, how you got to Rwanda, the kind of insights, the lessons that we need, because we're trying to function not only on a local level. We think globally, we act locally. And so therefore, I'm hoping that you can share some things with us about these intercultural and cross-cultural experiences that you've been having at a very, very high level. And hopefully you've gotten your legs and back under you and you're not fatigued. And so, but I know that you've been going through a lot of movement, and I hope if you do something like this again, you'll give us an early chance to try to support and undergird some of the things that you do. With no further ado, I'm going to ask that if you have any questions or comments, that you put those in the chat. Please raise your hand. If you have a, let's say like a real urgent question that you think's merits interruption, go ahead and raise your hand on the chat, and we'll try to let Ms. PK do that, but you're welcome to put questions and comments. And so for the next 25, 30 minutes, we're going to ask Ms. PK to give her peacekeeping presentation about her recent travels to Rwanda and also to the Bosnia Serbian region. Thank you, Ms. PK.
Omowale, you're very welcome, and I'm honored and humbled by your invitation. But more than that, you and I've been on the front lines a long time for supporting and educating and nurturing and mentoring children. And I loved what you said, because that's my motto the last 20 years, to think globally, but to act locally. My community is mostly Third Ward because I grew up here. I was mentored here, supported here, taken by my ear here, and I was mentored well. Barbara Jordan, Dr. Freeman, Dr. John Biggers, Omowale, who's not that much older than I am. So we were like brothers and sisters in here, but we've done a lot. And whether or not we're talking about Clarence Bradley or Nelson Mandela, we in Houston have been on the front line for the civil rights movement. Dr. King came here in 1967. That was the year that integration started. But we know that integration was a dismal failure because they never desegregated. So these conversations that we have about our past and our experiences, know that these past events and experiences happen around the world. And an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. We are the people who can make a difference. And if you're ready to make a difference, I think that you've got a lot of social issues that you can support and that you can impact. And impacting the future is what I want to do more than anything. I've been telling Omowale, I've been with a lot of indigenous tribes and communities across the globe. I've been to more than 20 countries. And each time I've been shown such hospitality as a Black woman. This trip to Rwanda, though, I will tell you, was the most affirming and fulfilling time of my life as I go the 70 years around the sun. I have been blessed. And coming home, yes, I was tired, but I was also supported in going there and coming back. And what's happening in Rwanda now in the last 29 years has been the miracle that we can emulate, and that we really should learn from them how they've done this. Kigali, Rwanda is the most beautiful city I've been in a long time. And I think not because it doesn't have some problems, or it doesn't have it's homeless, or it doesn't have issues that they have to address. It's that they are taking care of their community. A lot of time when peacekeepers come into these areas like Bosnia, Yemen, Cambodia, you see that they do more harm than good. But the biggest lesson that I have learned is part of my strategy. It's called the 7th generation strategy. What we do today affects the next 7 generations. And what is affecting us now has been because of the past and the lessons that we didn't learn and we didn't see, or that we colluded with. One of the things was that somebody said something about Hotel Rwanda, and they had seen the movie. And Bishop John, the Anglican priest who's working on reconciliation and restorative justice, said, that's their narrative. That's not our narrative. The guy, Don Cheadle, that did the great, acting, that man was not a hero. And sometimes we forget to ask the people that we supposedly are trying to hurt what happened. We go in and tell them what happened. So in this 29 years of remembering, renewing your society, this fight between the Hutus and the Tutsis was planned, orchestrated, and executed. And there were signs. And now Rwanda is building upon those signs and teaching others. And I think that this is one of the things that I would really love to see, is us participate in some of the training that is coming from places like this. I went to, Omawali will told you that I went to Serbia. And one of the things that amazed me was that the mosque and the Jewish temple were right around the corner from each other. And after the war and the bombing, they obliterated a hotel with millions of books. Why would they do that? Because they don't want you to have a history. They don't want you to have your narratives. And right now they're banning books. I say, write more of them, because there are more stories to be told. But the controlling of your narratives is an important element of what's happening in Rwanda. So I just want to show this quick little PowerPoint presentation and give you an indication of what happened when I walked into the Rwanda hotel and off the elevator to a big sign that said Ubuntu, humanity to others. It's an ancient African word reminding us that I am because you are. And that is what Rwanda is doing best. I'm a part of an international organization called United Religions Initiative. In 1997, I started going to a series of workshops at Stanford University by Bishop Swing, who was the Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese. And his idea after the 1995 50th anniversary of the United Nations, he decided that what the world needed was a united religions. And of course, a lot of people thought he was trying to do one religion, but what he did was he brought people from around the globe. First, he went and talked to imams and pastors and religious people, and basically that's crazy. Nobody wants to do this. So he started bringing people, teachers. It's kind of like what Bill Moyers did. If you watch this movie, this series of talks called Genesis, where the Abrahamic faiths came together. This is about hundreds of different faith traditions and teachings of people that I've known. Some of these people in this picture I have known for 25 years. And some of these people in these pictures are the young people who came because we decided that we did not want to not take care of the young people by giving them efficacy to talk about religiously motivated violence. And what they decided was that there's also social justice violence and community violence that needed to be addressed. So we came together, and this is what we learned. When Rwanda erupted into violence, neighbor turned against neighbor, family turned on family, and love turned to hate. And sometimes right here in our own communities, we find that we'll work together, but we don't respect and trust one another, which means that we don't get anything done. Once beautiful country was ruined as any spot on the world with 800,000 people, 1 million people almost slaughtered in less than 100 days. And how did they take to this? They did it together. They are the miracle. This is me and the people that I've worked with over the years at the memorial. Remember and renew. But the big word is unite, which is the word in community, unity. It is time for us to start challenging ourselves to address our biases. We put a wreath on the tombs of individuals who did not get a decent burial. Some of them were never found or just thrown into a big hole. 3 of us, an indigenous woman from Argentina, myself, and the young man from Bosnia, we laid these wreaths. And when Rosa Delia speaking in Spanish, she touched my heart at the word she was saying, because as an indigenous person, she too has to deal with almost genocide in her country, which is just below our country. This is my friend Musi Halud, and you'll love this, Omowale. Musi, I've known as the young man, and he works with the United Nations for the Golden Rule. And I asked him, I said, you're younger than I am by about 20 years. Do you know who Mickey Leland is? And he said, oh yeah, we've got buildings named after him, a road named after him, and a holiday. So you know where we've got to go, right? We've got to take our kids to Ethiopia.
Absolutely.
So these hands, these are people that I love. These are people that I care about. But more than that, these are people that love me. And it feels so wonderful to know that we're getting to know one another. There's a thing called appreciative inquiry. We're getting to know one another through different tools, but we're staying in touch because the heart is engaged. Of course, you know, in Africa, the music was pumping and the drumming. We're in Houston in a Pan-African community. I just was over at SHAPE, and I'm looking at all those flags from countries where people from the diaspora can see and know and be a part of. We did a lot of work in 6 days, and our executive director is a guy that his name is Jerry White, and he works for with Princess Diana of ending landmines, because when he was a young man in 20 hiking, he lost his leg to landmines. He's now our executive director. We've only had 3. this is a road going down in Rwanda that was just so peaceful. And of course, I stayed in a place that looked like this. So you have this beautiful um, land and beautiful community. Mostly the way people travel are on the back of motorcycles. I didn't do that. But as us going, it was the first time that we went as a conference, and United Religions is a place of diverse religions, spiritual expressions, and indigenous traditions throughout the world, promoting enduring daily interfaith cooperation to end religiously motivated violence and to create cultures of peace, justice, and healing for the earth and all living beings, which is what I want to do for the rest of my life, what I'm called to do for the rest of my life. I believe in the seventh generation strategy because we've got a rich history. I wouldn't be who I was if there wasn't somebody like an Esther Keaton. I wouldn't be who I was if there wasn't someone like a Barbara Jordan, who took me under their wings, took me into their heart. And at some point, we've got to recognize the humanity in each other. Because if we don't, it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or Democrat or a Baptist or a Catholic, gay or straight. It does not matter if you don't feel that you're being heard, that your humanity is being valued. I asked them one day when I was, they were serving me lunch, and they kept, making sure I was okay. And I said, why are you all treating me so well? I want to be so spoiled. I'm not going to be able to go back home. And the young woman said, it's our culture, sister. Welcome home. I now know that I'm not just an American. I'm not just a Black American. I am a global citizen. I have touched the hearts and I've seen in the eyes of many true love. And of course, love should be our best religion. I know that the emotional part is part and parcel of what we're dealing with. But I wanted to share with you as well one place that I think somehow we need to partner with. And they're not just the only one. Rwanda's not just the only one. In 1994, like I said, a lot of places were dealing with genocide. And here we are, 29 years later. What do we have? Ukraine? Do people know what's happening in Yemen? Do we know the names and places the name of places where we aren't doing our best to tell their stories? What was most interesting when I was in Rwanda was after Bishop John talked. I remember in 2003 meeting a young woman named Jacqueline Margarita, and I'm messing up her name, so Monica, if you're listening, I'll get it right. But she was a young Rwanda refugee. Only she and her grandmother got away. And she was at the UN. I was there. I had brought young people that I mentored at the Rothko Chapel. And she wanted to ask a question to Elie Wiesel, the Holocaust survivor. Also there was Muhammad Ali and his wife, and Jane Goodall. And so these three ambassadors were listening to her story, but she had a question. She said, how do you not want to seek revenge? How do you lose your mother, your father, your siblings, your neighbors, and have your life so upended and not want to go and do to them what was done to them, to her family. And she didn't cry. She had this poise that, you know, as a young girl of only about 8 years old, now she's going to college, and now she's safe, or supposedly safe, in America. And Elie Wiesel said, you have to tell your story. And when you tell your story, you have to let other people tell it to other people for you. In other words, we tell each other stories. We know about each other. Respect and trust are two elements of relationship. And the problem sometimes is you work together with someone, and I guess 2016 gave us a real look at it. Some people that I have known forever, worked with on projects, we have done amazing work, are voting for a man who says, I can kill somebody on Fifth Avenue and people would still vote for me. And someone said, well, you know, it's about facts. And then there's alternative facts. But most of us are ethical and we have integrity. That's something you work at every single day, because your biases are entrenched in all of us. And the reason is because there's a structural system throughout the globe that continues to pit people against one another. And it's one of the signs that the Aegis Trust in Rwanda can do. So one more little showing of where it is that I think we should go. Omowale, this organization reminds me a little bit of the things that we were doing when it came to Dr. King's legacy. And the thing that they do, they rebuild lives, and they use education to break cycles of hatred. And that is the big word, hate, that sometimes overshadows the big word, love. And so I just want to start with what they do. They've developed a peace building model in Rwanda that changes attitudes and behavior, providing students with the necessary tools to build long-term peace communities. We've got to strengthen our community, Omowale. And it is so important because one of the things that was central to their work were the narratives. So the idea for me of banning books is to control the narratives. But seriously, think about it. If a child reads about Rosa Parks, and that child is white, and you ask them, does this make you feel bad that they treated her bad? And one little 10-year-old said, no, I don't feel bad. I wonder why those other people don't feel bad. In other words, the past, the perpetrators. In Rwanda, a lot of the children, or a lot of those who committed the tragedy, the slaughter, were children. So what do you want to do? In Texas, we'd execute them. In Rwanda, they restore them. So I think that there are probably 3 aspects of what I think all of us should do. First of all, I think we ought to have plans for how we build relationships, agreements. It can't be done overnight. There may even have to be, and they talk about this at the Aegis Trust, preventing this, is because sometimes you have to reconcile and heal. And you can only do that if you do truth. Truth is a word that has power, but it can hurt you. It can make you feel bad. And it depends on what you do with the truth to make it something that changes lives and changes circumstances. I want to save lives. If I don't do anything else, I want to know that I supported and nurtured young people who are ready to be policymakers and ready to be peace teachers. And one of the things, my creativity has just been pouring out of my pores, Omawale. But I would love to share books, children's books from Africa and America. But the other thing is that I'd like to see that emulated in Yemen, in Cambodia, in the Middle East. I've been on the front line, and it hasn't always been easy. But my thing about what I do is I'm an artist. I'm an artist. In other words, I love getting artists together and creating events like the Two Americas, when we did the YouTube speech from our scholars, from our young people. I have a dream. Every year we do that, Sister Mama Sonia and I. And in doing that, that's for the future. That's also our history. They're interwoven. And it's time we take our efficacy to do these things back. That affirmative action, they want to take affirmative action. Let's talk about it. Are you going to take away legacy building? You know, your great-great-grandfather went to Harvard, so that means you get to go to Harvard. One of the things that I learned is that integration being a failure was because it wasn't everybody making the decisions. It wasn't the communities that came together. It was one group of people. And if you start looking at all of the wars, it's either corporate or governmental, but it's a power grab more than anything. Well, we have the power to change that. And so I want to thank you for listening to me, for being given this opportunity to share this. And I don't want it to be, it was a vacation and this is what I did on my vacation. It was not, it was work. And it was work that was built upon trust, love, compassion, grace, truth, reconciliation, and restorative justice. Thank you.
Well, Ms. PK, you have really advanced a lot for us to think about. We have a couple of questions in the chat. One from Devin Ross. Can you see that chat question?
Wally, I can read the question to her.
What you said, ma'am?
I can read it to her if you want me
Yeah,
to.
please.
PK, the question is, how difficult was it to unite to the different religions for a positive cause?
Tell us she on.
You on mute, PK.
Yeah, sorry. It's still being developed. The United Religions is really a grassroots organization that has a corporate structure just so it can be in different countries. But there are 1,100 cooperative circles. A cooperative circle is 3 religions coming together with at least 7 people to deal with the problem. And the problem could be educating women. The problem could be ending poverty. There's a nuclear disarmament group, that a cooperative circle. These cooperative circles, I have one. It's Think Peace Media and Communications CC. And what I did when we first started in 2008 in India was start giving little cassettes that could be put in your computer so that people had the efficacy to tell their stories. There's a North American CCs, but oddly enough, there are not as many CCs in America where we started than there are in India and in Africa, in places that know that this is important. So I would suggest, and I'll put it here in the chat, UnitedReligionsInitiative.org or URI.org. Please go and think about, do we want to create some some cooperative circles here in Houston? Maybe that's one thing that I can kind of help to. We're not a cult, I promise you. We are, we're grassroots organizations and we speak different languages. I'm a trustee. I'm also a founding member. W.D. Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad's son, was one of the people who there at the very, very beginning. And actually, that's one of my first biases. He told me, PK, you'd make a wonderful Muslim woman. And I said, oh, no, I don't want to be a Muslim woman because I'd have to walk 2 steps behind my husband. Stereotype, right? He never said, well, that's not true, or, you're being biased. Later that night, as we were coming from dinner, he said, where's PK? Because I don't want her walking behind me. I'm going to walk behind her.
Wow. What a story.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
What a story.
So,
Remarkable.
in answer, we're doing it. We're doing it. It's not enough of us.
Wow. Wow. Now, PK, I want to capture that story that you just told. And of course, we're going to trumpet that story that you just told. It's very moving. Devin has his hand up. Devin?
I actually didn't have my hand up. I put my question in the chat.
Okay.
Ms. Bradley was reading them off already.
Well, I want to answer the second one, Cassie. Would you read it?
Yes. How difficult was it engaging people of torn countries, which may have lost trust in religious organization and possibly a high power?
Well, that's an excellent question, because in 2007, when I was in Brussels, one of the things that I was lamenting is that we weren't talking about things like racism. And I remember a group of people thought I was insulting Bishop Swing and my friend Charles Gibbs and saying these white men were racist. I was talking about a structure. I'm a Christian. There are people who tell me, why do you want to be a Christian when they use that to keep us enslaved? Well, you drive a car, right? And if you run somebody down, the car has become a weapon. But a car is for transportation. Use those things for what they're made for. So when people have a problem, it was one of the things that became part of what happened after the Holocaust, that there were people who were cultural Jews, but they weren't religious Jews because they felt like God abandoned them. There are people who feel that way. And when they feel that way, they need to be heard and listened to. See, the biggest problem is when you have a problem and people are complaining, people want to ignore your complaining. If if your child is telling you, I'm hurting, you do whatever you can for that child to make sure that child doesn't hurt anymore. But we don't do that in community. We're a cancel culture. We decide that who's the gatekeeper. I see surveys sometimes, who's your leader? I'm going like, I'm my leader. In other words, leadership is about service anyway.
There you
It's
go.
not about being in control and power. And we need to look at that in such a way that we can finally understand that leadership is a responsibility and a lot of work. You want to be in charge? Personally, as I turn 70, I don't want to be in charge. I want you to be in charge, Cassie. And I want you to give me my marching orders. And I want you to do it because it's not me passing the baton. It's me building the bridge. I'm a bridge. I'm a bridge from some things in the past because I didn't read Dr. King in a book. I've read Dr. King when I stood before him at age 14 and was introduced to it. Do you understand? And laughingly, I was joking. I was listening to Michael Jackson's song about, what we do to save the world, right? And I asked one of the young kids at Peace Camp, who is that? And she's about 11. She said, Beyonce? And I said, no, that's the king of pop, Michael Jackson. Who's that? Who's Michael Jackson? Come on, guys. Are we really sharing our history? Are we really giving kids, Maya came to Prairie View. So did Lena Horne. And these writers, Langston Hughes, they did their best to give to their communities in a world that wasn't really supporting their efficacy to do so. And so, hi, Jamie, thanks for coming. The point is that when somebody tells you they have pain, you deal with it. You answer the question. And you listen to them. You do more listening, I think, than you do talking. And so I'm always glad to engage, but I want to hear from you more than I want to tell you this wonderful thing that happened to me, because I'm sharing that over and over again. I know that it added years to my life because I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to take care of my health. But at the same time, I'm going to continue to tell the stories that make our community strong.
Ms. McCary.
Yes, sir.
That was an excellent presentation, but you just really piqued my interest in regard to how those young people reacted to Michael Jackson. I vividly remember sitting down with my son, who's now 35 years old, watching Popeye cartoons when he was probably 4, 5. And I told him, oh man, I've seen this Popeye 150,000 times probably in my life. Y'all didn't have Popeye back then. Okay. So, there is a certain amount of disbelief on part of this generation that, we actually did these things. You are not the first somebody to have this pitfall or to have done what you think only your generation has done. How do we counter that in the mindset of young people who believe that because we are at the age we are, we don't know anything and we are past any point of reliability?
We have to create the venues to help us do that. And like I said, one of the things is that we have the scholars readings and bringing them together. In 2000, we created Peace Camp. Peace Camp, the children are now grown-ups themselves. You teach them to reach back. I mean, that's part of your tool chest. Thursday at Shape, the young performers came and performed for children and elders. And we sat elder, child. And I have this incredible cane that I got in Belize, and I sanded, and it's really tall. It looks like it's my Moses stick. Let's just put it that way. I was letting the kids, different ones, hold it. But the point was that I told those young people who created the art form that what they just did was reach back to the generations behind them. Those kids that they're not even 10 years apart have already influenced one another. We just have to work at it. I don't know how else to say that. But our school system needs to incorporate some of the peacekeeping skills that I've been learning and others have been learning, and that I've been learning from young people. They need to be integrated, because this fighting among people, the only people that are being punished are the kids. I'm a storyteller, and I love using a story to make a point, because these stories are stories that are embedded in my heart. And we got to use that heart muscle in the decisions that we make. You can't do it otherwise.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Miss PK, I guess I just want to, say ditto or put some inflection points behind the comments that we received about your presentation. I think we've been moved, and there are a lot of follow-up kinds of discussions that we're going to have about your presentation. I think that the comment by Devin is somewhat pregnant with, I won't say some more questions or some type of interrogatory on, how do we challenge or how do we capture this narrative that's been stolen from us? So we will be trying to have some more discussion just about the richness of what it is that you presented to us today. I wanted to mention the fact that the Saturday before Thanksgiving, we meet at the Mickey Leland Memorial from 12 to 12:30 for a brief memorial celebration. And so we're gonna ask everybody if you can, to put that on your calendar so that we can do I think this will be the 6th or 7th consecutive year that we've been doing that. So if you can, keep in mind that we don't have any For More Perfect Union broadcasts in the month of November. The only thing that we do is that we meet at the Mickey Leland Memorial. I think that if you have some further questions or concerns for PK, that she'll be glad to lend you her email, and you can reach out to her via email. I see Miss Lawson. Is that Miss Lawson who has joined us? And I don't know who invited you, but we welcome to have you here. Would you like to say hello?
I would. I'm one of Mama PK's babies. I am happy to see my fellow Houston Climate Movement folks here. I'm a community outreach chair for that, and also co-founder with PK on Reflecting on Our Future, which she can talk about. She hasn't. I'm sorry, Mama PK, I just checked my Facebook and saw this. I hate that I missed your presentation, but if I could just throw in, they do like drag queen story time. What if we did banned books story time?
Oh, yeah.
To talk about some of those books with those histories that are and those narratives that are being stolen.
Oh, that's wonderful.
this is the kind of action responses that I want. Look, I'm blessed. I have been privy to a lot of events and people that have impacted my life. And at the same time, I'm so busy doing something, you know, like the climate summit that's coming up and the International Day of Peace. 21 days before the International Day of Peace, I want people making peace cranes and teaching the history of Nagasaki. And when that bomb went off and impacted the world, I want to do, because those things last in your mind and in your heart. And so Jamie is right. That's a great idea about the banning books. I haven't even thought about that. I'm going to do some grassroots publishing by helping people in the community write their books and get their word out. So thanks for that, Jamie.
So PK, we're not going to address it now, but I'm thinking about that profound work that you did with the peace cranes. Maybe I'm thinking that might have been 7, 8, 9 years back, but it was absolutely profound. I wanted to encourage everybody here to reach out to PK and let her share some of her peacemaking activities. And I think it's important that we get to know each other up close, one-on-one. As you all might have seen, I recommended to you that there's a Netflix movie called The Swimmers. I don't know if y'all have seen that movie, but PK has seen it. It's basically about refugees from a war-torn region who went through a just an important transformational journey, and it lets us focus on the part of the world that's actually being displaced from war. And it talks about internal refugees and also refugees that are external. So I ask you to please watch the movie, The Swimmers, and we'll have some communication about that. I'm sure that we're going to give somebody an assignment to unpack this movie that's coming up, the Oppenheimer, on Oppenheimer, which will be in theaters, I think, next week. So we will be trying to...
out now, brother.
What you say, sir?
It's out now.
Oh, it's out now. Okay, good. So anyway, we will be trying to do some follow-up on that. Ms. Lawson, you're welcome back at any time. Shara did call, and she had a Sankofa educational event taking place this morning. But we've had some impactful, concentrated material that was very gripping, and it was intellectually and it was emotionally engaging. I really want to talk some more about that. So I'm hoping that we can kind of do a appendage or a kind of a companion discussion next week, because there are a lot of things that I like to talk to folks about regarding the almost what I want to call the death of God experience that took place in Rwanda in the aftermath of all of these other genocides that had preceded that. So anyway, folks, we will have some more discussion about that. And let me give you an opportunity to have any closing comments that we have, because we are trying to stay close to our contracted time, which we usually out by 12:15. So let me just start from the find out if
Got two hands up on Mwale.
Yeah.
Okay, two hands up. Okay, yeah, please, Ms. Lawson and Devin Ross, please go ahead.
I just wanted to let y'all know this Sunday there is a vigil for asylum seekers. I just put the Facebook event in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
I would just like to put emphasis on what Ms. PK brought about with the not passing the torch, but building the bridge, and to talk about how our kids, if they don't know Michael Jackson, they definitely don't know our local icons and heroes like our Mickey Leland's and things like that. So I think building that bridge and educating our kids on some of the local things, because they don't know the global, they definitely doesn't know the local. So I just want to put some emphasis on how important that was that she brought that out. Thank you.
Good point, Delvin. And I'll just tell you, one of my ideas is, Mother Denver, for instance, who wore this hat with all of the buttons on it and walked and was a vegan, but she said, racism is a disease. Are you sick? And she talked about her grandfather, who she wanted to draw, but there was no brown crayon at her school when she was a little girl. They gave her the pink and the peach because she was light skinned. She wanted to paint her grandfather. So she had the statement, color me in. And I see it as a children's book. What if we took that one story she always told and turned it into a children's book? That this became Mother Denver. Mother Denver as a child with her crayon, finally getting her crayon and saying to the world, color me in. That's a book.
Certainly.
And so our creativity, we can get grants for it. We can start just filling the shelves with stories of our local heroes and sheroes. I think it's really, really important. So I'm all for it, Delvin. And if you'd like to help with it, give me a call and we'll talk about some other books that need to get out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ms. Edwards, Nancy, what you got?
Well, I'm really glad that I came today and heard PK's presentation, and I think there's a lot that we can learn from it. So thank you.
Yeah.
You're very welcome, Nancy.
Yeah, I think that Dr. Bob, were you with Dr. Bob when he was, when the conflict was going on with the succession in Nigeria and that was near genocide? Nancy?
Mm.
Were
No,
you?
that happened before I met him.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, he was in Africa.
Okay, good then. All right then. Okay, good. Brother T.
Yes, I'd like to add to Ms. PK. I was just thinking in my mind, are you from Third Ward?
I am. Well, I lived out in Cambridge Village, but I graduated from Jack Yates. And that was because I went to Madison in 67 and 68. And I told my father, they don't care about me.
Huh.
And Goldie Harshorn made sure that I could go to school. So I went there. I did a year at TSU, then the University of Houston, but I consider myself Third Ward. And Deloitte was my mentor when I was 16 and in college. And he used to tell young men, that's a child, let her grow up.
Probably been around each other pretty close, but I could feel every word that you were saying. And I'm always amazed by the fact that Houstonians have always been international people for very back then. And I since came to Third Ward to go to attend the time. Of course, we know that our Mickey Leland passed away in a crash in an airplane in Africa doing his work. And the only inspiration I wanted to leave with everybody is that I've been truly blessed in the latest mission that I've been involved in. and that's the research of Third Ward. And I'd like to inspire everybody to go to the Eldorado Ballroom. It has air conditioning and has a very nice restaurant inside, and just sit in that restaurant and just look around to Emancipation Park and look into the building and the art across the street, and be inspired by the Renaissance that's taking place in Third Ward today. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, T. By the way, Miss PK, Cassie B that you see on the screen, Clarence Brandley is her daddy. So I just wanted you to know that. But I'm gonna go ahead and yield to you, Miss Brandley.
Oh my, let me see your face. Let me see your face again.
I want to say thank you, PK, for coming on, sharing. I know I met you some years ago. Mr. Omawale introduced us when we was doing IY. And I can just tell by your tone, your heart, your passion that you have for this this movement. And I'm going to call it a movement. And I know that you had several calls to action, and whatever you need me to do to support the initiative, I'll be there, because again, I feel that we need to continue to tell our history. And again, just like Delvin stated, if they don't know Michael Jackson, who Michael Jackson is, they won't know who, I don't even think they know who their grandparents' name is, right? And some facts, because some of them used to call their grandparents by their nicknames. But again, that's something that we need to continue to teach our young adults, because they are the future of tomorrow. But I am on board with supporting you through your journey, and thank you.
Well, I want to make sure, Cassie, that you meet my daughter, Erin McCary. She's got United College Education Center. And last night we did a summer camp for 2 weeks and brought the kids back to tell about their experiences. She's the future for me. We're creating a home for girls who have been either in foster care or CPS custody. We've been doing renovation on it for a long time. And it's not even about bringing volunteers, it's about bringing a community so that these girls will know that they're first, number one, at home. This is a home. It is not a facility, it's your home. And to give them all that they need to build a better future for themselves, that they get to decide what they want to be and how they want to grow up. And you teach them ethics and how to be respectful and all of those things. I mean, I'm writing a book now called Raising Erin. My daughter taught me to be a better mother. And so, not that I was a bad mother, it was just that the world was changing in the 80s and the 90s. And here I was, the parent. And so I think it was mostly fear. A lot of times that made me a harsh mom, because people were dying over Nike shoes and starter jackets. And so I felt like I had to, but teaching them to be critical thinkers, you may come up against it. Like my daughter said one time, "Mommy, that's not fair." And I said, "Baby, if life were fair, you'd have come here with a job. You came here broke, hungry, and naked. How fair was that to me?"
Gotcha.
Not to be outdone, she comes back and she says, "But Mommy, I didn't ask to be born."
Ooh.
And I thought, okay, but you did. And she said, "I did?" I said, "Yes, because the Bible says that God knew your name before you were a twinkling in my eye."
Oh.
And that means that you and God were up there plotting to have me as your mother.
Wow. Very profound. Very profound. Thank you, Ms. PK. I saw that David Taylor, Flying Tiger, has joined us for a second.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Flying Tiger.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
What's
Good
going on, man?
afternoon. We're actually checking out. If you have a closing comment, we'll give you an opportunity to make a closing comment.
I'd just like to say, unity is our strong suit. And if we stay together, we can conquer most anything.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Well, look, this is just about to concludes our presentation for today. We're going to remain hand in glove, united with Ms. PK and her endeavors, and hopefully she'll give us an opportunity to support some of the activity that she has going on. But I'm glad that you had the traveling grace, that you can get back to us safe, and you have such an impact in Rwanda. Let me close. My closing comment will be, I think that she mentioned something about her daughter was talking about the unfairness of the world. And I wanted to say that, which is what I've been sharing with people, which is just from my own personal thought bank. And that is that life is so unfair, but it's so unfair for everybody. And that's what makes it fair.
I like that.
Pretty good. That's pretty good.
Okay, well, look, God bless everybody. We'll see you, everybody, next time. Thumbs up, Miss PK, and bring us some
Everybody
more.
send me your information. If you've got mine, send it to me, and we're like that.
Thank you. And so
I'm gonna call you.
So share this with Miss Brantley. Is this a link today to the presentation that you just put there?
Yes, it is.
Okay, everybody, you got a link to the presentation if you want to share it. God bless everybody. We'll see you next week.